Good morning, everyone, again. For the ones that just joined us, we will start now with the webinar from the SynchroniCity Open Call. We will start with the welcome from our project coordinator, Martin Briscoe from Aarhus University. We will have then the introduction to SynchroniCity and the SynchroniCity Open Call presentations with administrative information from Gemma Aguilera, and then the SynchroniCity framework from Martino Maggio. And then we will get questions and answers from you. The floor now to Martin Briscoe.
Thank you very much, Francesca, and good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here to invite you to explore further the SynchroniCity Open Call. I will not go into a lot of details what SynchroniCity is about. Since you're here, you will already know. This is just to say that we are now more than 1 month into the launch, or after the launch of the Open Call. We have gotten a ton of attention, and I think what we would really like to support you in doing now is to understand the details, both in the objectives of the Open Call, which are in fact quite specific. It's just not, let's go out there and make a lot of nice systems and then see what happens. No, it's much more specific. And then on the other hand, really to guide you through the technical framework and also the administrative procedures leading up to a successful proposal. It's very exciting times for us. We are happy to have this opportunity even to give you the opportunity to work with us on this quite extensive challenge of understanding how do we not just make systems for cities and citizens and to have a thriving market, but also how do we do it in a way that it's an open market. It's a very relevant topic in today's world, since we know actually how to make many of these systems, but it seems somehow that having them working side by side and linked to each other, also from the human side of things, from the business and commercial side of things, from the procurement and operations perspective, from cities which are really, really complex organizations. Those are not easy tasks. So we invite you now for this 2-hour session to really get close and to prepare you much better to submitting a successful proposal for the SynchroniCity Open Call. So that's all from my side. I'm very happy, I'm very humbled to be able to invite you in here, and I give the floor back to you, Francesca. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. As I said in the beginning, we will have a set of polls, and we would like you to reply to the first poll in order to get to know you a little bit better. And then we will start with the presentation from Gemma Aguilera. We would like to know what kind of organization do you represent. So you can select one of the following: SME, large enterprise, city or local government authority, NGO, or other. We will collect now your votes. Thanks for voting. Just as a reminder, you can ask us your questions. There is a section in the GoToWebinar control panel. Please do not forget to send us your questions so we can answer after the presentation, just for the ones that arrived later. Then we will have Gemma Aguilera from Future Cities Catapult that will present us the SynchroniCity Open Call General Framework.
Thanks, Francesca, and welcome everyone. I'm really excited actually to see that there's so many people joining, especially given that it's July and August. It's not perhaps the best of the times, but it's good to see that there's so much interest on the Open Call, and we've been receiving that for the last month. So really excited to be with you, and please refer to any of us during the whole period. We're here to work with you. That's perhaps the main message I want to transmit today. But so I'm Gemma Aguilera. I work at Future Cities Catapult. I'm the SME program lead there, but I'm also managing the open call in SynchroniCity together with 37 other partners. For the presentation today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain a little bit of the backbone or the essential part of the open call. Then we will move towards the technical framework, which Martino will explain in detail. And then we'll go more to the administrative parts, which perhaps now it's a more interesting bit, given that probably many of you have already get in contact with the SynchroniCity open call framework and baselines. And then what's next? What you need to do next? So let's move on. Next, please. Yeah, we can start here, for instance. So just to put everything into context, SynchroniCity tries to open up a global IoT market where cities and where businesses develop shared digital services to improve the lives of citizens and to grow the local economies. In essence, what we're trying to do here is to deliver a digital single market for Europe and beyond Europe, a global market. To do that, SynchroniCity, we are trying not to create or impose a new architecture, a new IoT framework to the cities. This hasn't worked in the past because cities are complex systems. They have their operational ways of working. They are very based on silos. And to change from one day to the other completely, it's very complicated. They are based on legacy systems. Actually, this nobody really likes to transform themselves so much. So what SynchroniCity is trying to do, instead, to make these cities interoperable, is to try to identify the minimum interoperability points and mechanisms that they will need to adapt in their existing architectures, existing IoT frameworks, so that they can actually become compatible in a much more simple way, much more open, much more agile, and based on standard. So in essence, SynchroniCity are the first step towards creating this digital single market in a way that then you, the market, can develop the products and services that can be easily replicate, reuse, and you can show scalability. And this suddenly will start to become much more attractive from the investor side, because new business models will come up out of that. So having given this overview, we have several cities involved in our, yes, this one, several cities involved in the project, 8 of which are going to be the pilot cities, what we call the core pilot cities, where you will be able to demonstrate and to pilot your solutions in. These are Helsinki in Finland, Manchester in UK, Eindhoven in the Netherlands, Antwerp in Belgium, Carouge in Switzerland, Milan in Italy, Santander in Spain, and Porto in Portugal. The objectives, the main objectives, please, next slide. Yeah, the main objectives of the open call are the following. So the first one is that we want to validate what I just explained, the SynchroniCity vision, its technical framework, and the open call as a mechanism, open call mechanism as a model for large-scale standard-based innovation and procurement, so that we can use this systematic later on in the future, probably extended in other projects around Europe. Another important objective, probably the most important one for you, is to demonstrate, you need to demonstrate interoperability, replicability, reusability, and scalability of IoT human-centric solutions across cities and across domains. Then we would like to see build an ecosystem around it to ensure the expansion and sustainability of this vision of SynchroniCity, of the digital single market, and also help shape and adopt new smart city standards. That's going to be also an important bit. Next slide, please. So who is it for? And that's important. So the open call is targeted mainly to SMEs, to those SMEs that can provide an IoT application or a full stack solution. Full stack meaning that they can provide the infrastructure, middleware, and application on top of it. We are not looking for very early stage solutions here. At the end of the day, we need to prove that the solutions can be replicated, reused, and scale. So we are looking for SMEs that have a technology that has already been demonstrated in a relevant environment. So TRL 6 and above, and there are the definitions of that if you want. You can find all this information in the open call guide for applicants that you can download from the website. SMEs will be the main, let's say, stakeholder in this open call, but also cities and large businesses can participate in it. We want to embrace the entire community. We don't want to prescribe what the market will be. We want you to find your own partners. Cities and large businesses cannot lead the open call, so they will need to apply in pilot groups in conjunction with an SME. Other SMEs, which are perhaps not providing an IoT solution or a full stack solution, can also participate as members of the pilot group without leading themselves. So how you're going to organize is really up to you. There is no better or worse way of creating a pilot group. It will depend very much on if it makes sense in the context of your solution. Next, please. So the main characteristics of this open call is we have a pot of 3 million euros for the open call, from which we will select between 10 to, I would say, 21, 22 different city solutions. You will need to test and pilot your solution in at least 2 cities simultaneously, but preferably more than that. We want to show that cities are interoperable and your solutions are replicable and reuse and you can scale. So therefore, the more if you can pilot in more than 2 cities, that would be better, as long as the project is feasible within the budget and within the time scale that we have. And then the projects will need to be piloted and deployed from up to 6 months. This is the demonstration period. Eligibility criteria: what you must comply with. This is eligibility, so it's a yes or no. It's the following. It's pretty simple, but it's good for you to have a look and think about that, because this will be a yes or no, go in, go out into the open call process. So the first thing is you need to submit your proposal on time. That's clear. Then the application needs to be led by an SME, and we have the definition of SME. We follow the one from the European definition of small and medium enterprises. You can find this definition in our open call guides for applicants that you can download from the website. Then the SME proposal so the lead has to provide an IoT-enabled application or a full stack solution. Your proposal needs to be complete, meaning that all fields need to be filled in. The language, it's English. Everything needs to be submitted in English. We have partners from all over Europe, and that's the common language. Letter of support. So if you bring in your new pilot group a new city, you will need to get a letter of support from this new city. You don't need to get a letter of support from the existing 8 core pilot cities, but yes, from a new city. You will need to pilot your solution in at least 2 cities, but preferably more. An important one is you must not be affiliated with any of the SynchroniCity consortium partners, because that enters in a very direct conflict of interest. So you have to take care of that as well. You need to be compliant with the SynchroniCity ethics and privacy guidelines. These guidelines are also exposed in our documentation. The only thing you need to do is read them understand them, make sure you comply with them, and sign a paper that you will attach in your application. The call, your proposal needs to be within the scope of the call, and you will need to include eligible activities for funding. That's the eligibility criteria list. Next. That's the scope. The scope of this open call is pretty broad. So what we did is just we discussed with our 8 core pilot cities that I mentioned at the very beginning, and we're trying to find out what is common, what are their common interests, and this is what we came up with. And these are going to be actually the challenges that you will need to address in the proposal. So there are 4 different themes, in fact. The first theme is about sustainable mobility, and the challenges that you will need to address are the following here. It's enabling mobility as a service. It's like how can you enable a multimodal transportation system? How can you access real-time data on transport modes? How can you improve efficiency? Things around that challenge. The other challenge within sustainable mobility is encouraging non-motorized, or what we call also active transport. So how can you encourage citizens to use active transport more often, for example? Or can your solution address safety issues around this active travel? That's possible questions that you may address within this challenge. Second one is environment and well-being. The first one would be climate change mitigation. For instance, how can you combat flooding impacts? Or can you make, how can you use data sets to provide an integrated management solution, for example? The other challenge would be reducing noise and air pollution. That's clear. How can you improve the levels of noise and pollution in our cities? Then there is the challenge around citizen engagement. How can we increase citizen engagement in decision making through, for instance, intelligent use of available data? And the second challenge around this theme is how can we increase the greater level of diversity in political engagement? How can we address, for instance, the digital divide? And finally, we have also an open theme. This open theme, it's perhaps for those more innovative or more disruptive solutions, or perhaps those solutions that don't fit somehow any of the themes and challenges that we're proposing, because we know we don't have the answers to everything. In fact, you know what you can provide and which services you can provide, and perhaps you have something very interesting to offer to our cities, to our 8 core pilot cities. So therefore, you are going to be also able to apply, even if it doesn't fit any of these 3 main, let's say, themes and challenges. Next, please. So when you apply for the open call, you'll need to choose one of these challenges. And here you have a table where you could see all the different cities and the challenges they are subscribing to, or what they are interested in. So when you apply, please make sure that the challenge and the cities that you are applying for are in accordance to this table. Most of the cities actually have subscribed to most of the challenges, so it shouldn't be such a problem. Next one. Funding, that's probably an interesting bit for you. So how is the funding going to be distributed? If an applicant, if an SME applies alone, you will be able to receive up to 100,000 euros. If you apply in a pilot group of 2, the pilot group can receive up to 200,000 euros. And if you apply in a pilot group of 3 or more organizations, the pilot group can receive up to 300,000 euros. SynchroniCity will co-fund only 80% of this total individual budget. The remaining 20% must be provided by the applicants, either as in-kind support or by bringing in new funding to the project. Also, cities and large businesses that are eligible for funding can claim only up to £60,000 of the total allocated budget. There is a template in our documentation, what we call the toolkit for applicants. You have two toolkits for applicants, one for SMEs and large businesses, and another toolkit for applicants for cities. If you are a city, you can find those links on our website, in the open call site. So there, if you download it, there's going to be a section in templates, and you will see the funding template. And there is a tab where we put examples of how this budget could be distributed. If you're interested in that, please just go there and have a look of how we are going to be distributing this budget. Then another thing I want to point out is that SynchroniCity Open Call is open to everyone, all SMEs, cities and large businesses, either if they are from EU or abroad, global. However, only those from the European Union or Horizon 2020 associated countries will be eligible for funding. That's a point that you need to consider. Next, please. Timeline. Okay, so the timeline is also available on our website. I invite you to have a look at it. I'm not going to go into the details, but just pinpoint the main, actions or the main timelines which are important. So we are now at after the first month of the open call. So the open call opened on the 1st of June and will close on the 30th of September. That's the first deadline that you have. That's important. Please, next. From the 30th of September, then there's going to be the evaluation period where we will evaluate all your proposals. And by the end of November, you will get a notification of what are the proposals that won. Then there's going to be a rescoping period, because it may happen that there are some changes that need to be adopted, because it may happen several things. For instance, some of the cities are not fully ready, or they have other sets of data which they didn't include. So cities are becoming ready as we speak now. So there's going to be a period for rescoping. But finally, we will start let's say the piloting phase from February 2019 until September 2019. What is important here is that at the very beginning of February, there's going to be a bonding and a customization workshop. This is a 2-day workshop. It's important and it's compulsory for all the winning applicants. It's important because probably here is where you will meet all the cities and you will meet all the other winning participants, and we can create and customize really the projects. Is where things will be shaped. Because it's important that you attend, you can claim the funding for this workshop in your application. And there are some guidelines in the open call application guidelines of how you could cost that. Please, next. Technical framework. I think now it's finished from my side, and I give the floor to Martino Maggio. Thank you.
Thank you, Gemma. Before giving the floor to Martino, we would like to take the second answers to the poll. So we will show now the quick poll. How many cities are you thinking of targeting? 2, 3, 4 to 5, 6 to 8, or 8 or more? Please reply to the poll. Okay, thank you for voting. We will have now the presentation of the technical framework of SynchroniCity by Martino Maggio. Thanks.
Hello, good morning to everyone. This is Martino Maggio from Engineering Informatica. It's an IT company, big IT company in Italy, parts of the consortium of SynchroniCity. In particular, my role is the leader of the technical architecture of the project, and I'm going to present the technical framework, so the technical assets provided by Synchronicity project that should be also the base for the applicants related to the application. No, they are the asset that are the base for the application and the project to be proposed for the open call. So next slide, please. Okay, basically, first of all, these slides show the principle that are at the base of Synchronicity. So these are 4 important principles that we follow when we design the architecture, and also we provide the implementation, the reference implementation of Synchronicity framework. First of all, we adopt a neutral branding. So the idea is not to have a vendor or city lock-in. This is for sure, it's very important because we don't want to impose any type of specific technology for different reasons. First of all, because every city has already in place a different system provided by different providers. So we don't know to impose anyone, or we don't want to oblige cities to change their systems. At the same time, we want to we wanted to bring in the project the concept that is also related to OASC initiative, Open Agile Smart City initiatives, of the minimum interoperability mechanism. So that's in Synchronicity, we want to define some interoperability mechanisms that allow the existing system provided by the city and the application that want to use the system to interact in a simple way using the standards and without again imposing any specific technology. So we base this on open APIs, so APIs that are freely open based on widely used and important standards. Common data models, this is very important because we think that the key problem for the interoperability is to speak the same language. So one of the objectives is to provide a set of common data models that can be used by the city to represent the same information that come from sensors, that come from other sources that are present in the city, that can be expressed, that can be described with the same language, with the same data model, with the same ontologies. So this is finally to achieve this objective that are objective of interoperability, so the possibility to interact, different systems can interact in a simple way, to the replicability. So this is a very important point also for the open call. So the application and the services built on top of the Synchronicity API should be replicable. So you can develop the same service and you can test the same service in different cities with minimum changes, because the services in anyway are based on the same API and same data models. So this can foster the reuse, also the reuse of the internal components that are based on standards API. So it's simple to substitute and reuse same components in different contexts. In also another point is that in our technical framework, we already provide not simply an architecture, that the logical architecture which includes interfaces description, component description, but also a reference implementation that is based on open components. We have, and I will show later, a repository, a GitLab repository in which you can access and you can freely install and access to the code of these components. Some of these are existing components taken from existing initiatives, and you can use to build for sure a minimum Synchronicity framework. And also we have all these components can be for sure used in as a service manner. So if, for example, we already provide the Docker files to be deployed as a container in all the cloud environment. And also as the project, we provide a sandbox, so a cloud environment for test purpose that can be freely accessible by the applicants or external stakeholders that want to test the Synchronicity API. So please, next slide. Okay, this is a very high-level overview of the Synchronicity architecture. As you can see, is a layered architecture. So its component is composed by some main components, and inside we have also specific modules with specific functionalities. For sure, there is no time to enter in the details. But you can find all the details in the deliverable in the website, and also is going to be also delivered an updated version of this of the Synchronicity architecture in a few days. But in this slide is shown simply the different main modules and their functionality. So we have for sure an IoT management component that is the aim is to interact with the different devices using different standards and protocols. So in order to make them compatible with the Synchronicity API, we have the context management component that is the core, because it's the component that aims to manage the context information that are basically the information that come from, for example, the IoT week or the IoTs or the IoT devices or the other city platform resources that you have in the city. And so all the functionality to manage this context information and to harmonize through specific shared data model. Then we have functionality to manage the storage, for example, historical information and open data, and the uniform way to access to them. We have transversal components that are the security and the monitoring platform and management. This is our for sure functionality that are transversal and to support the overall framework. And we have also, it's very important, the marketplace. So that is the main entry point to the resources. It's a sort of a hub to enable digital data exchange. So to enable the possibility to access to the data directly and to also enable monetization process. So it will be possible, for example, to sell data or to access under specific access license. So at the top we have the different API that allow the external application user to access this information and these functionalities. It's very important to underline that this is a modularity architecture. So every city can implement parts of this architecture if already some city has some of these components already in place. For example, if a city has its own security system, for sure it's not necessary to substitute, but it's possible to integrate with the components. So for us, the most important points are the red one that we call the interoperability points. So you can please go to the next slide. Okay, this is very important. So it's not important the technology that you use to implement all these logical modules and functionalities. Is very important to provide and to access through these interoperability points that are the main interfaces, the main entry point to the Synchronicity platform. So interoperability points are independent from the specific software components. To realize them are simply some interface, and so our interoperability mechanism, to interface with the external application. And for each of these interoperability points, we have the actual specification that are standard API that we already defined that can be found in the project website, are documented. Next, please. So this is a table that detail what I already said. So we have this set of interoperability points and the corresponding mechanism. So we have the logical definition of this API and the concrete specification. So you have for each of these API and also for the data models specific documents, specific deliverable, but also website in which are documented the API. And also it's very important to underline the last columns, that is the relation between this API and existing standards. So we didn't want to reinvent the wheel for sure, but we wanted to use existing standards widely used. So as you can see, you can see some key standards. For example, we use for the context management the NGSI standards. In particular, we are exploring the new NGSI LD specification, that is a version of NGSI standards for linked data. This is an ETSI work, so it's a specification under the ETSI initiative, and we are working on that. But we also use, for example, O2 for the security. We use TM Forum API for the marketplace. So already we want to use standards that are already used and widely recognized. So next, please. This is a big overview of the different project resources. As I said, we already provide a specific technical asset. So not simply a deliverable with the architecture, but we provide the API description. So in these links that you can find there in the slide, you can find the website for sure. You can find the API website in which all the API are described. You have a GitLab repository in which you can find the basic reference implementation components for Synchronicity. You can download, you can test. You can also, is not listed here, I would say, but it's possible, you will find in a website, and it's possible also to access directly from the API. You have the sandbox, so a cloud instance of Synchronicity that is possible to access freely. It simply needed a registration. You can invoke the API, you can test, you can find also real data from the cities, so you can see what concretely the Synchronicity APIs are, and you can test for example, your initial ideas on that. You have the open data website, so we also collecting data that are heterogeneous data that are coming from the different reference zone through a federated open data platform that you can find into this open data Synchronicity IoT address. And then we have the IoT data marketplace that for the moment is in a developing phase, so it will be ready very soon and will be the main access point for the different data of the reference zone in Synchronicity. So this is only to tell you that we have a lot of resources. You can directly go there and test all the things that we already provided in the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Martino, for your presentation. We will get now the third poll. So please answer to the poll. Are you looking for partners? Please select one of the following answer. No, we're good for now. Yes, but we know who to contact. Yes, and it would be great if you could bring us together. Not sure yet. Thank you for voting. I think we can take also the fourth one. Are you looking for the fourth one? That will be, have you already been engaged with Horizon 2020 projects before? Yes, no, or not sure? Thanks a lot for voting to the poll. You can see here already the results, but as I said in the beginning, we will compile all the questions, and there will be also a very short survey that we will send it to you. So please reply to the survey later, then we can make an analysis of the results, and we will publish through the website and the social media. We will go now directly into the question and answer. We don't have big set of questions so far. I would like to start with the more administrative questions, and then there will only just one technical question. So if in the meantime you will have more questions, please write on this section from the GoToWebinar control panel for the questions. We will start now with the questions to Gemma Aguilera, so the administrative one.
Francesca, do you want to present as well the administrative side of things?
Yes, perhaps it's better to present it first,
and then we can take questions later. Perfect. Yeah. Okay, so back to here. So let's just briefly mention the administrative part, which is probably quite relevant, especially at this point in time. So if you can move to the next slide, please. So one of the first questions that we receive from all the applicants is what's going to happen with my IP, with my intellectual property rights. So this is something that we have addressed in our documentation as well in one of the sections. But let me give a very brief outline of our answers. So in terms of IP, it will remain yours of your pilot group. So SynchroniCity will not retain any equity on your solution, but we will ask you to share the findings of your pilots in the events during the next years. Which this is, I would say, nothing bad at all, because in a sense it's a branding exercise for you. So think that you will be presenting SynchroniCity and your outcomes, but many of us, the partners, will be also presenting that. So you will have an amplifying exposure of your solution. In terms of who owns the data, that's also another question that comes up all over and over again. And in the case of SynchroniCity, it's a complex project because we have many different cities, and cities are different by nature, and they have their own legal systems, they have their own way of working, they have their priorities. So we cannot impose a single way of how we share data. In the cities, you can find all sort of type of data, open data, closed data, with open access or restricted access. So what we are going to do, instead of creating one single set of how you're going to change data, we have allowed, it's going to be your responsibility to understand what are the requirements in each of the different cities you will have to pilot in. Of course, we are going to be helping you in that. We'll give you hints. We have provided information already in the city cards, which are in one of our documentations that you can again download in the toolkit. But you will be able also to talk directly to the cities in the cities clinics and understand this. And we will kind of be able to communicate if there is any issue or something unclear through our newsletter. But it's again your responsibility to understand how the data is going to be shared in each of the cities. To do that, you will need to sign, if you're winning the application, first you will need to sign a pilot agreement with Future Cities Catapult, which is us, because we're leading this open call and we need to transfer money to you. But also you'll need to sign a sharing agreement, which is basically a legal contract with each of the cities you will pilot in, where you define exactly how your data and assets are going to be shared during the pilot and after the pilot. So it's important that you understand that, and this is clear. And of course, we are here always to support if there is any question. Next one, please. How is your proposal going to be evaluated? So just let me say or reinstate that it's very important for you to show that you can, or that your proposal, your solution will be interoperable, replicable, and can be reused, and therefore scale. So that's something that you always have to have in mind when you write this proposal. However, your proposal is going to be evaluated against 4 different criteria. This is excellence, impact, feasibility, and sustainability. And each of these criteria, it's going to be scored between 0 to 5, and half point will be possible. So there's going to be a number of reviewers. I will talk about the reviewers later, but it's going to be scored between 0 and 5. So excellence, we are looking at, for instance, what is the vision and value proposition of your solution? Is your project proposition clear in meeting the objectives of the calls? Is it innovative? So that's going to be the excellent part. The impact, so how does your project address a challenge recognized or priorities by the cities? It's very important here you set KPIs. You set your KPIs to be able to measure your impact on how is it going to benefit, for instance, communities. How is the economic, environmental, and social impact of your solution? These kind of things we are going to be looking at. In fact, you will be able to download from our website the documentation, and if you go into the application form, you will be able to see what are exactly the points that we are looking at for each of these criteria. The next criteria is feasibility. And here we are going to look at technical feasibility, team feasibility, and budget and work plan type of feasibility. Technical is going to be of utmost importance. It's very, very important. The solution we already mentioned before needs to be mature. It needs to be at least a TRL, technology readiness level 6 or above. So we don't want untested solutions. We want something that has worked. And this is going to be very thoroughly evaluated. And actually, depending on that, it could be rejected even. So it's very important that you cover the technical bit. And what Martino, referring always what Martino explained to you just a few minutes before. Then the team. Either if you apply alone or in a consortium, we want to understand if you apply alone, what are the complementarities between the team? How is the team going to deliver the project? And if you are also applying with a pilot group, within a pilot group, why have you chosen those types of partners to deliver your projects? This is something, again, that we are going to be looking at. And then that you can deliver your project in the budget and in the timeline and within the work plan that you have set. So, and then there is sustainability, again, which is going to be very important, is going back to the 3 points I mentioned before. How can you demonstrate interoperability, replicability, and reusability of your solution? How credible is your methodology in providing the scalability of your product or the services? And how do you have a set plan of commercialization and exploitation? We want to see that you have a clear vision and roadmap towards how are you going to make this scalable. And if all, so the most important criteria here are going to be feasibility and sustainability. If there is equal score, feasibility and sustainability will prevail. So there are 2 important ones. The next one, please. So this is the process of how your proposal is going to be evaluated. At the very beginning, there's going to be, we'll receive all the projects, and then we will anonymize them. This is following the GDPR, and on top, we don't want any bias evaluation. So we will anonymize all the proposals, and then they will go through a eligibility check, the list that I have shown you at the very beginning. If you don't fulfill the eligibility check, then your project will be rejected. The next one, each of your proposals are going to be evaluated by 3 different reviewers, which have different expertise, and that they are a mix of experts or people that know the project, and they are both internal and external evaluators. The technical ones are going to look very well about how mature and develop and how feasible it from a technical point of view your solution. And this is critical, because if you cannot demonstrate this is technically feasible, then it will be rejected already at this point. And then the ones that follow will be reviewed by city-minded type of reviewers, so people who understand how cities work and what cities need, and also a set of commercial reviewers where there are VCs, so venture capitalists, business angels, or commercial-minded people, and they are going to look at the sustainability of your project, your roadmaps, etc. Again, all these three reviewers will score your project against impact, excellence, feasibility, and sustainability. Will collect these averages scored, and those who score 14 or above will pass to the next stage of the evaluation, and the other ones will be rejected. And then we will get a final list from high to low. And we will, it's a group of people which we call the Open Call Evaluation Committee, made of the people that we developed the Open Call plus certain cities, the core pilot cities, and some legal advisors and some on privacy issues will also take part in this discussion. We will then consider all the projects and we'll look at specific considerations around how we balance geographically the projects. The themes are challenges, pilot cities views are going to be very important. And again, if there is an equal score, we will prevail feasibility and sustainability over impact and excellence. And then we'll have a final list of the winning applicants on the first week of November. We will then do a check on the ethics and privacy issues. These are important issues. We want our, let's say, solutions, the solutions of Synchronicity, to follow the ethical and privacy guidelines. So there's going to be a check, and probably there's going to be a few amendments. I don't expect here to be a big issue for anyone. So probably this is going to be a more mundane check, but an important one. So if something is really wrong in terms of ethics and privacy, your project could also be rejected. Again, I don't expect any major issue here. And at the end, we will communicate and disseminate the outcome of the final list of winning applicants. Yeah, next. How to apply? So there's like a process, probably it's quite complex. So for this reason, we've created a visual for you that you can download again from the toolkit for applicants. There is a place where it's set visuals, and you can download it as a single A4 paper or A3, whatever it's better for you, and it will help you to go through this process. So go to your website, you can tick it, download and read the Open Call documents, tick it. Do you have a partner? So it will help you navigate in this process. You just want to make things easier for you, and that's some of the resources that you have available if you want to use them. Next, please. That's basically the continuation of that visual that I showed. Yeah. So what's next? So what should you do now if you have decided? Well, first of all, you go to our website, just have a look at it, and go to the Open Call site. And first of all, download the one-pager that it allows you to understand how to read the documentation. There's a lot of documentation, there's a lot of information, because there's many cities, many partners, it's an architecture. It can become confusing. That's why the best thing you can do is read first this one-pager on how to read the documentation. The next bit will be read the Open Call at a glance. The Open Call at a glance, it's a document. So if you are a city, the Open Call at a glance, it's a document that is a summary of what I have just explained. So it will give you enough information for you to decide if you want to carry on with the application, or perhaps you will realize this is not the Open Call for you. Maybe you are too early stage, or maybe that's something you don't want to pursue. So here is the breaking point. If you decide to go on, then you will have to download the full documentation, and this is There are several documents where the open call is it's explained in detail. We explain the budget, we explain the eligibility cost and non-eligibility cost, we explain the legal framework around it. So it's the entire documentation around the open call and the framework. And then we have also the template and visuals that I show. Probably the most important template for you. You don't need to read it all, but there are a few ones which are critical. Like, for instance, the template on the application form. There you will see the questions that we are going to ask you during the applications, and some guidelines of how to respond these questions. I think you should probably get familiar with that before even starting to prepare your application and applying for it. Next one, please. So support, we are going to be giving support all along during all the process, and we really don't want you to be detracted because you haven't been able to speak to us or something is unclear. So we are providing several channels for you to get in contact with us. Well, first of all, one of the first things probably you need to do is just go to our website and register for the newsletter, because through that we are going to be communicating with you. We want it to be very interactive. We want also to be very observant of the market demands and actually be flexible if needed to adapt and to make it better, this open call. So some of the channels that we have now for you to get in contact with us are an open forum. You can find the links on our website in open call and support. So the open forum, you can ask questions, and these are open questions that everybody, the whole community can see and everybody can answer. Then we have the help desk, which is like one-to-one type of questions, private questions. We've been now running for a month. How we are organized is we do rotations internally to answer these questions, and so far it's working very, very well. So of course, if you have any issue, please just contact us through these channels and we will try to address this as soon as we can. Then there are the clinics. In fact, these are city clinics. This is if you want to get in contact with the cities instead of doing randomly, we have set up certain days where cities will be available for you for one-to-ones. So each of the 8 cities have set a few days or half days where they will be available either face-to-face or by phone. So you can just ask for a slot in their time. And all this information, again, it's on our website. You just can go there, support, open call, support and clinics, and you'll be able to register your interest to talk to those cities. We are also running webinars as this one, and asking or answering your questions if needed. And then one of the things that we are that we have received a lot of interest is that people are asking, how can I find other partners? How can I find, I don't know, a city? So I know there is an issue. We as SynchroniCity are not proactively helping in doing these connections, but we have realized that there is a need and a demand. So we are developing now a system on our website that will be ready by the end of this month, in which you will be able to present your needs and who you would like to partner with and find potential partners. Again, we will also have other links to other organizations whose responsibility is actually creating these partnerships. So like the European Enterprise Europe Network, for instance, we have those links. Again, also, there's another extra resource that has come up in support of the IoT large-scale pilot. So we are part of a bigger family of pilots, and 2 of which, like us, or 3 of which, we are running open calls. And it has been created a playbook, an SME playbook, which also gives you hints of how to find a partner. We will send you also this link to this playbook. And finally, it's also important for you to know that on our website, there is a frequently asked question document. This is questions that people have asked us during the webinars and during the clinics. And I would say it's the first point where you can go and try to answer your question. And there's a lot of information there. It's very useful. If you want, please just go on the website and have a look and see if some of your questions are answered in that document. Please, next. And this is the application platform. So your application will be done on a software-based application. It's called Submittable. The link, you can access the link through our website. We've noticed that some of you have struggled to access that link. If you have read the open call guidelines for applicants, this is because we've been doing a few changes and we have not yet updated this documentation. This will be updated next week. But just for you to be aware, all the latest news and information are going to be on the website. The website will be the most updated, probably, piece of information you can find. So please enter through the platform, the application platform, through the website. And there you will be able to find two sets of questionnaires. One is the Synchronicity Open Call, the administrative questionnaire, where we are going to ask you who you are, when you were founded, what is your sector, things like that, more administrative. While the technical questionnaire is the application form per se. Here you will be able also to upload a few videos, or one video of 1 minute if you want, or other slides if necessary. It's not going to be long. It's going to be about 10 pages, not more. So you can start having a look at it and see what questions are there. Again, you need to complement that with the application form template that is in the toolkit for applicants. You'll see that you can start writing on it, but please don't press apply. Just only press apply when everything is finished, because you won't be able to retrieve it back. Okay, so just you can right now it's going to be automatically saved, but do not press apply until your full project is ready. Yes, and I think that's the last one. Let's see next. Yes, and yes, so that's all what I wanted to say. These are all the partners of Synchronicity. We are 38 partners, and here you can see. And nothing else. I think, thank you very much for listening.
Thanks a lot, Gemma. Thanks for the full presentation also about administrative questions. I will now go through the questions that we received through the GoToWebinar control panel. Let's start first with the administrative one, and then we will follow up with the technical questions. The first question we got is, what if an Indian SME want to apply to participate in the Synchronicity Open Call? Do they need a letter of support from the European cities?
Okay, so everybody can apply from all over the world. That's we don't want to, exclude anyone. However, because that's an European project, only those who are from the European and Horizon 2020 associated countries can receive funding. If they are okay with that, you're very welcome if you are from India. But again, be aware that you won't be able to receive funding. You won't need, so you will have the same regulations as all the others. You won't need a letter of support from the city, from the 8 core pilot cities. You will only need a letter of support of these new cities that you bring in your pilot group.
Thanks, Gemma. There is another question that is related to the previous one. What if an Indian city wants to participate in the Synchronicity Open Call? Can a European SMEs pilot in India?
Again, we open to everything. Yes, it's happened. It can happen. Again, though, the city, because it's not an European city or Horizon 2020 from the Horizon 2020 associated countries, will not be able to receive funding. But if they are happy with it, or they can get self-funding, and they are happy to adopt this open and agile settings, and adopt the Synchronicity framework, then it's up to them. If they find an SME that it's happy and they have the budget and resources to deploy there and do it, it's totally possible. But it will probably, you'll have to look very well about resources, timings. But if you can prove it is viable because you can add extra resources, it's yeah, it's feasible, it's possible.
Thanks, Gemma. Another question is, a pilot group implementing a solution in a new city needs to also implement that solution in one of the core pilot cities?
The answer to that is yes. So you need at least 2 different cities, and at least one has to be from our core pilot cities. Preferably more of them, but yes, you need at least 1 core pilot cities, and then you can bring also as many as cities as you like. But be aware that then the budgets will be different. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Where applicants can find the Synchronicity contact responsible for each pilot city?
So not every so you will be able to find or to contact the cities, I would say, if you go to the clinics, the open call clinics that I mentioned before, the city clinics. This you will get in contact directly with that city lead of that particular city. That's the main channel to get in contact with them.
Thank you, Gemma. The final administrative question is, does an NGO eligible to apply and submit a proposal to the Synchronicity open call?
So we haven't considered NGOs. So the open call is for SMEs, for cities and large businesses. However, again, we don't want to prescribe what an SME who should partner with. If this SME, the lead SME, thinks that that particular NGO, it's important to deliver part of the project, and they agree with that, they can be part, but they cannot receive funding.
Thanks, Gemma. In the meantime, another administrative question has arrived, so I will ask you, can we take part in 2 projects?
You can take part in as many projects as you like. However, be aware that only one of them will get funded.
Another question that just arrived is, does the call exclude national authorities who can manage on behalf of a new city to join the call for proposal?
Again, sorry.
Does the Synchronicity open call exclude national authorities who can manage on behalf of a new city to join?
Well, if the national authority manages IoT framework that can be adopted the Synchronicity architecture and Synchronicity framework and can deliver urban services to the citizens, if they play that role, they can apply.
Thanks, Gemma. Let's move now to the technical questions. So Martino Maggio will reply to the questions. The first one is, how does Synchronicity relate to one M2M architecture and specifications?
Yes, okay. For sure, one M2M was one of the standards and the project we relate and that we use as input for our architecture. I have to say that the objectives of one M2M is quite different, because one M2M is strictly focused on IoT middleware, IoT technology, while instead Synchronicity cover the full stack, I would say. In terms, but the relation between one M2M and Synchronicity it's very strict, because it's possible, and we are working inside the project to demonstrate the integration between these two platforms, I would say. In particular, there is a pilot in South Korea, because apart as was presented before, apart the 8 main reference zones that are part of the project in Europe, there are also other cities that are collaborating and working in Synchronicity. And in particular, we have the city of Seonggam in South Korea, and our Korean partners are strictly involved in 1M2M technologies, are demonstrating the integration between 1M2M IoT layer and the Synchronicity parts, creating specific adapter, for example, to convert protocols and 1M2M approach in NGSI context management standards. So in this sense, 1M2M for sure. So if the question is, if you have a 1M2M, I would say, solution that you want to test in Synchronicity, is possible, because Synchronicity is in any case compliant with 1M2M in this case, and there are concretely example and concretely pilots working on that.
Thank you, Martino. The other question is where the potential applicants can have access to the city resources available in every pilot cities, as well as the projects that they have already been run in every pilot cities.
Yes, I think that's okay. This is in terms of city resources, we will publish very soon. I don't know if Gemma can have a deadline about that, but publish very soon a web page. So we will listed a web page with the detailed information about the resources that we can consider dataset. We call also dataset. So which information basically are providing the different cities in the through Synchronicity. This is very important because we know that this should be the base, no, to build the application on top. So we will have very soon a page that will document the specific information and the technical details about the dataset provided by the different city through Synchronicity.
Thank you, Martino. Another question is how to know the technology readiness level of a solution. Is there a standard certificate for it?
Okay, regarding this, I think this is referring in general to the readiness level of solution for the proposal. So it's not related to strictly to Synchronicity, but for the proposal. There is for sure, you know, a classification of the readiness level, technology readiness level, provided originally, I think, from NIST and adopted also in Europe. That is the scale that was already presented, but I don't think that is there any type of certification that's and in any case it's not necessary in Synchronicity. Sometimes I have to say that the definition of the technology readiness level that is in any case explained, you can find different resources that explain in details, can be, I would say, is not always the same, because depends on the context of the application, the domains. But in general, what is, I think, necessary to demonstrate is that your solutions is in any case a mature solution that has been already used. No, it's not a simple prototype. It's not simple an idea. So this is very important, I think, you have to bring in Synchronicity in your proposal a product, a solution that has been used and tested in a real environment. So not simply an idea of a prototype.
Yes, can I add to that? That
Yes.
was very good.
Yes.
And yeah, I can confirm there's no stamp to you have a readiness level 5 or 6. So it's up to you. What we're looking in those proposals is how can you demonstrate that your solution is developed and it's technically viable and has this level of have been demonstrated in something which is a relevant environment, a city, but also if not, it's not a city, how can you translate it? How can you compare it with a city? And actually there's the document that I mentioned to you before, that we will send it in a follow-up email. It's a SME playbook that was done for the IoT large-scale pilots, explains a little bit the TRL levels and how are we looking at. So you can find more information there. One point that they put there is that you have to base your technology readiness level in the least developed part of your technology. That's what sets the level of your readiness levels as well.
Okay, thanks, Gem, and thanks, Martino. The final technical question is, what will be the future of the SynchroniCity platform after 2019, so after the end of the current open calls?
Okay, I think this is in general a question related to the exploitation of the project and for sure the future of the project, not simply to a technical question. But I would say in terms of sustainability and the future of the platform, we have to say that in terms of deployments, different cities that are parts of Synchronicity, so the main reference zone, these cities are deploying the Synchronicity framework in their infrastructure and as a specific sustainability plan. They don't want to deploy something that will be switched off in 2019. So the cities are integrating their system with the Synchronicity specification and components, managing and so providing support for their system. So in this sense, there is no general Synchronicity platform that is for all the cities that is managed centrally by a Synchronicity entity. But at Synchronicity, we provide the asset, we provide the specification, we provide technical support, and the city are working with their technical partner in a sustainable solution, also in terms of time. So every city has its own, I would say, sustainability project. Project in terms of concrete sustainability of the infrastructures. I don't know if, in this sense, Martin want to add something more.
Yes, sure. Thank you, Martino. Yeah, so essentially there are two parts, you could say, of Synchronicity. There's the whole framework or the foundation, and that in fact relies on the Open Agile Smart Cities initiative and other standards. So in that sense, everything lives on, I would say, on market terms. So if this is really found to be a helpful way to provision and to deploy IoT-enabled urban services, then it lives on, right? So it's not just something that has been developed within Synchronicity. Synchronicity takes a lot of elements which are to a large degree already there. It matures them and puts them together in a framework. So that's one part of the answer. It will live on if it's found helpful, because it's already living on. I mean, the NGSI, LD, and the other parts have not been created in here, the project, but of course, some of the project partners are central to this. The other part would be the services themselves. And again, it's up to the market. If they're found helpful for cities and citizens, if they're found helpful for the companies that are providing them, they will live on. If they don't, they won't. So I think really at the essence of this is what you found up in the beginning. If you want to see here the objectives, Synchronicity is a model for large-scale standards-based innovation procurement. It's not just a project in that sense. It's using and it's manifesting the OASC principles, but it's really emulating how every city innovates and procures based on standards on a large scale. So I hope that clarifies. Thanks.
Thank you, Martino, and thanks, Martin, as well. There is another question that is related to the previous one about the technological readiness level. So it's a very specific question. If you have two technologies which are TRL 6 and TRL 7, but you want to combine them in a new application, will this qualify for funding? I think either Martino or Gemma can take this question.
I don't know if Gemma want to Want to say something, or I can say something?
I guess it's difficult to know, because if this is a combination is like the sum of two, it seems to me that they are ready. Of course, if the combination it's something completely new that hasn't been has new elements of technology which suddenly brings down the technology readiness level at some point, then no, it very much depends. First sight, it seems that the technologies independently has been tested. So my first guess would be that they would be they can be combined, but it's difficult to assess. You know, you have to be sure that your technology is mature, it won't fail. You just need to find that it can scale. I don't know if Martino, you want to add something else here.
No. I think it's your answer is correct. It's not possible to simply answer yes or no, because you have any type of, the guidelines are general. Then we have to go directly in the description of the solution to judge, I would say, if this is possible. In general, yes, if you are basing, I would say, you are using mature solution, it's possible to say that the new one can be also mature, but depends on several factors. So it's something very specific.
Yeah.
Thank you, Martina and Gemma. I have just one final question, which is also related to the bigger consideration. So I will try to explain it as it has been written in the GoToWebinar control panel. So many open data sets in cities are usually annual, but this is not sufficient for presenting urban dynamics in relevant KPIs. And also many of the data sets are not of necessary quality. So will SynchroniCity team provide guidance regarding recommended quality of data? For example, at least monthly updated and not annual updated, and related to the different challenges from the cities?
Okay, I think I will try to reply to this question. That is very interesting question. Yes, we know that there is a key issue that this always often, I would say, the city are not providing a lot of data and very high quality data. This is for sure true. It's not simply true for the city involved in synchronicity by every city. So I agree that sometimes it's not possible to demonstrate some services or application that for example should be based on historical data, huge historical data, because we don't have this information. And for sure, if we don't have this information, you will not have also in synchronicity. So if a city didn't produce, for example, historical data of last 10 years for a specific IoT sensor, you cannot use this information. And for sure, we cannot recover this. What we are going to do in synchronicity is, for sure, we are developing a specification for common data models. This is very important. So we are saying to the city, okay, please, we decide together to adopt existing or domains, specific domains, and the city are agreed to use these data models to convert their data in this data model. And this is, I think, the first step that is a very quality, it's related to quality guidelines, because you are providing data, you are converting data from your existing data model or your existing dataset in NGSI and in a format that is common among the city. It is also machine readable. For example, we are converting, the different cities are also working converting several open data sets that are provided in very heterogeneous format, for example, CVS, so CSV or PDF or Excel file in JSON file in NGSI format. So these are one of the main work that is also is carried out in the city to provide this. In terms of guidelines, so apart this, I would say formal guidelines, no, related to format and way to produce the data. We don't have guidelines specifically on how to produce regarding the frequency to the time of guidelines. Because the situation in the city is different. So the reality is that we can have for sure to adopt common data models and common format to harmonize this data. And this is, I think, it's the first step and the most important one for the interoperability and replicability of solutions.
Thank you, Martino. Seems that we don't have any further questions. So now I will open the floor to Martin Brinskov, our coordinator. He wants to also explain a little bit more in detail some things. So Martin, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Francesca. Well, actually, I wanted to just answer the last question I see here relating to the ITU study group 20, since there's one M2M specifications there. And the question is, will this be valid? And I guess the question is whether it will be valid in a proposal for synchronicity. And just to say in short, referring to what Martino said, yes, for sure. There is a great effort being made to show the interoperability and integration between 1M2M and the synchronicity framework. So that's clear. Some synchronicity partners, especially around the Korean colleagues, are already working on this. But there's even more integration. So in the recent IoT week in Bilbao, we had a session where we not only presented the synchronicity framework, we also heard about the work from study group 20 from Marco Carucci, who's one of the rapporteurs there. And we heard about the other work item, which is also happening, or be worked on in the study group 20, around open APIs for smart cities. And by the way, we also heard a presentation of the NIST, so the American IES cities framework. So the short answer is yes, the specifications coming out of study group 20 are really key. And I think this is a key global forum also for finding the convergence in this up until now historically quite fragmented smart cities and IoT domain. So I just wanted to clarify that for you as well, Bindu. Okay, and maybe just some final remarks and conclusions from my side, if you allow, Francesca. Yes. I think this call is very helpful, hopefully for sure for you, the audience here. Thank you for joining us. But I think really I want to say also that it's helpful from our side to understand what you need in order for the synchronicity efforts and for the open call to be relevant. As you also mentioned, Gemma, we have big ears. We listen to what we perceive as being the needs of the audience, and the audience here being really the ones who have identified themselves as core audience for this open call. It's not an easy open call to go through. It's quite specific. We have, as you've seen before, we have some objectives which are really around understanding if this approach is helpful. But the reason why we find this so exciting, that there are people in the world who are attracted to this, is that we think that this model for large-scale standards-based innovation procurement is the way to go forward. If we look at the world today, if we see how big digital ecosystems are being created, well, this is the alternative to the monopolies. This is the alternatives to the very low rate of innovation based on very slow moving standards. So it's a very specific thing that we want to bring to the world. And in fact, it's not us bringing it to the world, it's you. So for us, it's a happy day when we meet you, the audience, and unfortunately, we are not in a position to support all of you in the end, since we have to be quite selective. We have limited resources, but it's a pleasure for us to interact with you and to hear your questions. And as Gemma and the colleagues also have pointed out here, we remain at your disposal, and we put quite a lot of effort and resources into be available in relevant formats and through relevant channels. So thank you again for attending, and we really are looking forward to the coming days and months to support you even further in this process towards successful proposals. So back to you, Francesca.
Thanks a lot, Martin. Thanks for everyone for attending the webinar. The next one will be organized on the 27th of August. So if you still have questions, do not hesitate to register and to join us in the webinar. You have all the information on the SynchroniCity website in order to register for the webinar. Thanks a lot again, and please also do not hesitate to use the open forum and the help desk system just by sending an email to the help desk at synchronicity@iot.eu. You will receive very quick replies. We are replying to potential applicants every day, so do not hesitate to use these tools that are very much updated, and we are looking forward to receiving your applications. Thanks a lot.